It little profits that an idle king, by this still hearth among these barren crags, matched with an aged wife, I meet and dole unequal laws unto a savage race, that hoard and sleep and feed and know not me. I cannot rest from travel. I will drink life to the lees. All times I have enjoyed greatly, have suffered greatly, both with those that loved me and alone. On shore, and when through scudding drifts the raining Hyades vexed the dim sea, I am become a name, for always roaming with a hungry heart. Much have I seen and known, cities of men and manners, climates, councils, governments, myself not least, but honored of them all, and drunk delight of battle with my peers, far on the ringing plains of windy Troy. I am a part of all that I have met, yet all experience is an arch where through gleams that an untraveled world whose margin fades forever and forever when I move. How dull it is to pause, to make an end, to rust unburnished, not to shine in use, as though to breathe were life, life piled on life were all too little, and of one to me little remains. But every hour is saved from that eternal silence, something more, a bringer of new things, and vile it were for some 3 suns to store and hoard myself. And this gray spirit, yearning in desire to follow knowledge like a sinking star, beyond the utmost bound of human thought. This is my son, mine own Telemachus, to whom I leave the scepter and the isle, well loved of me, discerning to fulfill this labor, by slow prudence to make mild a rugged people, and through soft degrees subdue them to the useful and the good. Most blameless is he, centered in the sphere of common duties, decent not to fail in offices of tenderness, and pay meet adoration to my household gods when I am gone. He works his work, I mine. There lies the port, the vessel puffs her sail. There gloom the dark, broad seas. My mariners, souls that have toiled and wrought and thought with me, that ever with a frolic welcome took the thunder and the sunshine and opposed free hearts, free foreheads. You and I are old. Old age hath yet his honor and his toil. Death closes all, but something ere the end.
Okay, so the first thing that we need to look at is the title, which is Ulysses. And Ulysses is the Roman name for Odysseus, the epic hero from Greek mythology. So this poem is about Odysseus' or Ulysses' life and is told from his perspective. So the first thing that we're going to do is go through and look at what exactly the poem is saying and any rhetorical devices that are used, because this is a fairly long poem and is complicated. So in the first lines of the poem, Ulysses talks about how all he does now is stay on his island and rule over these very uncultured people who just fulfill their basic needs and don't really do anything of note, and how his wife is old and he just feels very unfulfilled in his current position. Then he moves on to talking about how he wants to travel and how he has had great experiences with travel in the past and how he just wants to live life to the fullest. You see a metaphor here when he says, I will drink life to the lees. The lees is the sediment left behind in a wine barrel. So Ulysses is saying that he wants to take in all that life has to offer and just live life to the fullest. Then again, you see some personification when Ulysses says, for always roaming with a hungry heart, where he's personifying his heart. The next few lines, Ulysses starts to talk about all of the things that he has done and seen when he has been traveling, cities of men and manners, climates, councils, governments, etc. He has fought in battles in Troy, and he's just had all these wonderful experiences, and he's just reminiscing about all of the different things that he's done. He shifts back to talking about how badly he wants to travel in the next few lines. And you see another metaphor when he says, how dull it is to pause, to make an end, to rust unburnished, not to shine in use. So he's comparing himself to an iron tool who has just been cast aside and has rusted in the corner and hasn't had any uses or experiences. Then he starts to get a little more philosophical when he talks about how he's old and he doesn't have that much time left and he just wants to enjoy what he has while he can. And you see a simile where he compares himself to a sinking star, which is important because it demonstrates how Ulysses is aware of his age and aware that he's going to die soon and that he just wants to make the most of it. The next stanza is a pretty big shift. The first stanza is quite long and it talks about what Ulysses' situation is right now and his wants and desires. And the second stanza shifts over to talking about his son Telemachus and what would happen if Ulysses were to leave. So this stanza is basically just talking about how Telemachus is a good person and he's always respected and loved his father and would make a good king to the people and help them become less uncultured, and that he would keep up the religion and all of the duties of a king. Now this last stanza, Ulysses is moved down to the port and is looking at his ship. You see some personification there when he says the vessel puffs her sail. And this really emphasizes how connected Ulysses is to the sea and his ship. And he talks about how his mariners have been with him through it all and how they're old too, but they just want to go on one more voyage. And the last line, death closes all, but something ere the end. You see some personification there, as well as the line before that, old age hath yet his honor and his toil. So now that we've gone through and kind of analyzed what the poem is saying and different rhetorical devices that are used, we can move on to soapstone. So the speaker in this poem is Ulysses. The occasion is that he's thinking about leaving and contemplating what his life is like now. The audience is the people who live in his town and just whoever hears him as he's talking, as this is a dramatic monologue. The purpose is to convey information about his situation as well as conveying how deeply he wants to travel. And the tone varies in different places in this poem. So you see some contemplative pieces of it, as the first line, it little profits that an idle king, where he basically says that a king who just does nothing but sit on his island and rule doesn't really get anything from that, as well as I am a part of all that I have met, which shows that he's very connected to the places that he's been and those places have changed him. And also the last line, death closes all. And you also see some nostalgia in this poem, especially when he's talking about his age, like when he says, gray spirit, yearning and desire, and you and I are old. The last piece of the tone is the adventurousness of Ulysses, despite his age, when he says, I cannot rest from travel, and again in that line, I am a part of all that I have met.